Curiously though, seeing as I haven't seen you for about a fortnight, I don't know why, to be honest. What are your thoughts on Black Adam? Because I haven't really spoken to you about it.
Look, I think it's safe to say, in all honesty here, mate, it's definitely not as bad as we thought it was going to be, but it's not exactly good either. It's just alright.
Yeah,
It's alright.
I've seen way worse.
Oh
Way
yeah,
worse.
I've seen worse out of a superhero franchise. It's alright, I mean, don't eat, no, stop. It's Morphin time.
That's like the fuck off. That's like literally like the best thing to come out of this film is that it's not Morbius.
Yeah, like literally, like your literal review could just be, well, at least it's not Morbius. Like,
I think I did actually reference Morbius in my review.
I'm pretty sure you did because I read
to
it.
my letterbox in the description below. Doing this in like the pre-intro rambles. I'm just that good this week.
Which is going to be cut anyway, so it was a bit fucking
it's
pointless
not.
in the long run,
No,
wasn't
I'm
it?
not. I'm keeping the pre-rambles now. It's hilarious.
God damn it!
Why? It's just silly and it's getting silly. Where it's like, hello everyone and welcome back to the blah 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 blah. Let's open things up with a little.
Oh,
bit
no,
of
I think
comedy.
it's just a bit silly anyway, you know.
Well, I could tell because doing yours, it was like so serious. It was like The Rock playing Black Adam, like you've never seen just seriousness like, oh really, Regan, you liked bits of Halloween 6? Why? Why is that? Whereas if it was on this, I'm like, are you fucking joking?
I know. It's the total tonal shift from my one to your one. It's just like, well, Dan, what the fuck have you been watching the past couple of weeks?
There's
It's
more
like,
tonal
so have
shifts.
you... On mine, it's just like, what have you been watching? In just like a nice, calmly collective manner, and then we just head back to yours. It's just like, right, Dan, what fucking shit have you been watching?
Well, you see, gratefully we're not doing that anymore because I'm getting sick of you ranting on for 20 minutes about the 70 things that you watched and me like, I've watched 6. And none of them were a bloody Halloween film. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Podcasters, the show where we talk all things movies, TV shows, video games, and a bunch of other things in no particular order. Sorry for the fact this episode's come out quite late. We did have an episode planned last week, but due to other things that started going on, didn't really have the chance to do one. So we haven't spoken about Black Adam. Well, we have, just a couple of minutes ago. That's basically our thoughts. We didn't need to do a full episode on that, as it turns out, which is quite nice for us. But anyway, my name's Regan, and I'm joined, as ever, by my incredibly dark co-host. It's Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Regan. I may sound a bit bunged up again, audience. It's because I've literally got another cold after just fighting off the last one. It's getting
For
better,
God's sake, man, Dan.
but I'm still very snotty and phlegmy. So apologies if I'm like every 5 minutes. I can't really do anything about it. Blame my sinuses, I guess. But yeah, hi everyone.
So you're apologising for sounding like a predator? Just there.
Dan is.
The Predator. Oh, Jesus. That sounds
God.
horrible.
No, that sounds
anyway.
bad. Oh God, no. Let's not mention that ever again.
No, never again. We'll just move on. So, this week we are talking... This is our Halloween special, by the way. Happy Halloween, because this is going out on Halloween. Technically tomorrow. I would have recorded tomorrow night, but I'm at work on Halloween night, so I'll be busy dressed up as a plague doctor. So, it should be quite fun. This week we are talking about the Universal monster movies, all the way from the 1930s to the 50s. Don't worry, we're not talking about 30 of them. I haven't got the time for that, and I haven't seen all of them. So we'll just talk just like a bunch of them. I think otherwise we would have talked about the Halloween films, but seeing as Dan's already done that, and I've made a vow of silence on that entire franchise.
Shameless plug here. That should hopefully be done tomorrow. I've done a lot of audio editing today. Mm-hmm. I think it's safe to say, Regan, I'm never ever going to want to talk about some of those Halloween films ever again, so you can just be rest assured of that. I don't know how many times I've had to like go back and forth and premiere and just listen to you just go, the shape changes shape.
Honest to God, no, I will never talk about those films again unless I'm absolutely forced to. If there's a reason to, I can't see a reason to be honest.
But it should be out tomorrow. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I've just gonna check final couple of things and it's sorted.
So by tomorrow you mean today?
Well, tomorrow because it's Halloween tomorrow.
Yes, and this is going out on Halloween.
Oh yeah. Don't.
It's literally 9:10 at night tonight. There is no way I can get this out.
It's not 9.
before
It's 9. It's 9 minutes past 7. It's not 10 past yet.
That's even worse than anyway. But yes, that is our topic of discussion. We're also not doing playlists anymore because, quite frankly, I'm sick and tired of Dan flexing the amount of things he's watched on stream. I'm frankly sick of it.
Do I get like a little like award or something for having the most amount of like watches or something? Like
yes, and it's never going to be beaten again because I'm never doing it again.
Well, what do I win? Do I get like a little like trophy or something?
Your reward is you get to talk about your topic of discussion first. So instead, what it's going to be like is Dan will have something to talk about that he's not going to tell us about until we actually start recording, and I'll just find something to review. In my case, it'll be the most recent episode of Doctor Who, the one where Jodie Whittaker explodes. So I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of that before we do a big discussion about that in December. That's the plan of action. But let's just kick things off with Dan, with whatever he wants to talk about. I'm dreading it, and if it's a Halloween film, you are going to die.
Right, it's not a playlist as such, but there's a few things I want to talk about.
Okay.
Have you seen Terrifier?
No. I've got it on my watch list, and I noticed that you watched the second one.
Yes, so... I did watch the second one because it was available to buy just shortly after the release of it in the UK. Which, by the way, it's totally sold out on Blu-ray within, I think, like a day.
Jesus. Okay.
Totally gone, yeah. It's like people were going absolutely mental for it, Regan. I kid you not. Like places like Asda and stuff just have the normal DVD of it, and it's just totally went out of stock mostly everywhere. So I just got it on Prime Video for, I think it was around a tenner or something like that in HD. So I thought, well, can't really beat it.
That's not too bad, I suppose.
Would you be honestly surprised if I told you this might just be the goriest film I've ever watched in my life?
Okay, I'm just going to peer over to my shameless plug of my Blu-ray collection that no one can see to see if I found something gory. I'm pretty certain there is one. Surely. Alien vs. Predator 2.
No, it tops Alien vs. Predator 2.
One of the Screams.
Tops it.
Oh, for God's sake. How to Train Your Dragon 2.
What?
If only.
Oh yeah, that's the one where the disembowel. Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. This isn't How You Train Your Dragon, man. For God's sake.
How to Disembowel Your Dragon 2.
Although I suppose if you want a gory version of How to Train Your Dragon, you watch Game of Thrones.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, clever.
Basically, yeah. I've been wanting to see this ever since the trailer dropped, and with it being like a US only release, it was just stuck in the US for ages, and it came onto Screenbox TV, so again, like US exclusive streaming services and stuff, so we in the UK were like, well, when do we get it?
Yeah, exactly.
Which, of course, was the 24th of October when it came out physically. It might have came out digitally just before, I don't know.
Probably just before, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe just before, but it's 2 hours and a bit long, so I was a bit like, oh, okay. And usually I'm quite mixed when it comes to long horror films, because usually halfway through I'm kind of switched off. But this, it had me from start to finish. Like, my God. And hot take, Art the Clown is scarier than Pennywise.
I mean, probably. I feel like it would be, especially because realistically, Pennywise the Dancing Clown has only had one film to be scary, because he wasn't scary in Chapter 2. I mean, it's Chapter 2. I do apologise. It just happens every single time I talk about it.
I mean, don't get me wrong, right? Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise is pretty damn creepy, but it's just nothing compared to a serial killer clown that just doesn't speak at all. He's just totally silent. Like when he laughs, he does this like kind of like mute laugh thing. It's so unsettling. So I'd really recommend you watch it. Like, the critics are giving it a lot of praise. It does some things a lot differently compared to the other film, which I think is for the better.
Yeah, I know there's bits that the director and the writer wanted to do in the first that they ended up putting into this one, mostly because they had more of a budget.
Oh yeah, I think it was like $250,000 they had this time around. So
is that it?
Yeah, apparently.
I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's grossed like millions, absolutely millions.
That was easy.
So yeah, so general thoughts on it. I wasn't disappointed with it.
Yeah.
A lot of gore. In some ways, it's kind of like Evil Dead gore, where it just sort of amps it up to 11, really. because there's some pretty gnarly scenes in there. Won't lie to you. It's Now this is kind of just gore themed. This debut of what we're gonna call this, just topic of discussion.
I'll call yours Dan Dissects if I call mine
Oh,
Regan
yeah.
Reviews.
Oh yeah. So on this debut of Dan Dissects, we're gonna delve into more gore around this debut episode. So next up is a film by Ari Aster called Midsummer. Ooh, what was that?
Look, I've already said on several occasions I'm not a big fan of Hereditary. I actually think it's one of the most overrated films I think in years. I think it's fine, and quite frankly, I haven't got both the interest or the stomach to sit through Midsummer, which I think is something like 2 hours 45 something. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's
what?
It's a long one. It's a long one. The reason why I picked this was because I just kind of forgot how really fecked up it is. Kind of like Hereditary, but
Bloody cults.
yeah, like it just unfolds, and Florence Pugh is just brilliant. Everything
swear
just
to
seems
God.
so nice and dainty, and then everything just turns into cult, masochistic, murdering, blood, rituals, and all that kind of lovely jubbly stuff.
I mean, is there ever going to be a cult that doesn't do that?
Nah.
The Mormons.
I mean, there could be a real podcasters cult. Wink, wink. Wink, wink.
We've already made references to podcasters and Halloween. I don't.
Yeah,
really wanna do that
let's
again.
not encourage people. Let's not encourage people. Next up, we have it's a bit toned down compared to this one. We have Split, an M. Night
good one.
Shyamalan film.
I like Split.
Ooh, I think this is actually his best film.
Just wait until you see Unbreakable and Signs, because my God.
Okay,
Wait.
Signs is really good. I do like Signs as well, but Split so far just the best one I've seen.
Unbreakable's like in the top 5 when it comes to superhero films. I'm just saying. Split's, I wouldn't really call this. Well, it's a supervillain film basically. It's like Joker.
Yeah, it's kind of like Joker. That's where I think I like it, because I really like the standalone Joker film as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think James McAvoy is just absolutely terrific in this, and the different personalities that he plays. Especially Patricia and Dennis. I think they're just really like, well, I want to say cool, but they're not really cool. They're evil as hell. Like,
What about what's his name? The kid.
Hedwig.
Hedwig. There you go.
Mr.
The owl.
Dennis. Mr. Dennis is coming back.
This is so cool. James McAvoy is like the best actor on the planet. I feel like
He really is. He's a really good actor. Like, I know.
Like he's
it's a
been
bit
in some garbage films like Dark Phoenix or Victor Frankenstein, but my God, is he good? Like in everything. It's absolutely nuts. I don't know how he does it.
I mean, as Professor X, he's really good. Even in Dark Phoenix,
yeah.
it's a bit of a wobbly
A film.
stone. Yeah, it's a film. We'll say that nonetheless.
And that's been generous.
Yeah, it's a continuation with the 101 scariest movie moments of all time. So this is like the final one for season 1, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I think.
I have actually seen the list for the top 10, so I have seen what's at number 1. And I'm just like, bullshit.
I didn't put the number 1, but I wasn't. Well, do you know what it is? In truthfulness, I kind of knew it was going to be that as the number 1. I just had a feeling. But I was really surprised that Sinister got a number 8 spot.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that that had to pop up at some point. Like, there was no way it was actually gonna, like, there was no way it wasn't going to be on, even though I know you went back on your thoughts on it a little bit.
Yeah, because it did get another outing. I think it was like a couple of episodes prior to it, and even so, it's still quite high up for me. But yeah, this got a number 8 spot, and a lot of people were talking about. I think even we talked about this on Graveyard Chit Chat. Shameless plug.
Yes, I think we did.
With the Lawnmower Snuff film, everybody just seems to think that is like the most messed up thing about that film, and it's like the scariest thing about it.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, first time watch of it and seeing that, you're like, oh my God, did that just happen? Yeah, it did just happen. The scenes with Bagulin as well, I think they're pretty creepy, especially the pool one where you see like the reflected face in the water ripples thing. That's pretty creepy.
Aye.
It's a pretty gnarly film, those snuff films, and ugh.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And now, oh god, you're gonna kill me.
I'm planning on it.
Well, first and foremost, here's some news for you. And it's Gore related. It's Gore related.
Okay.
Halloween 2 version 1 was released on this day in 1981.
Yay! Let's never talk about it again.
Now we get to the grand finale of this Dan Dissects with what is actually Regan's most hated Halloween film of all time.
Wait, hang on. Wait. Okay, it's either actually, or it's the one where you constantly take the piss out of me for.
Oh no, it's actually.
Oh, you absolute gibbon.
Yeah, do you know what it is? Right, I went back after we were talking about this on Graveyard Chit Chat. I was like, is it really that bad?
Yes.
So I was like, well, it's on Netflix. May as well watch it. Look, it's bad. I still don't think it's the worst one. That, of course, goes to a certain one from 2002. No name
wrong.
needed. Yeah, and I think it's kind of funny that I mention this in this topic as well, because it's just gore. It's gore.
It is.
Nothing but gore. Nothing but gore at all.
Not
Yeah,
much else.
I really don't like the dream sequences. I really don't like the mask. I really don't like how he just walks around without the mask on. There's not a lot of that film I like at all.
Nah.
It's really not exactly far behind on what I consider to be the worst Halloween film.
Yeah.
And there's two of them, so this one is, it's in there. But yes,
Never
that
again.
ramps up this debut of Dan Dissects. So I'm going to now hand over the bloody scalpel to Mr. Regan.
Oh, it's gonna have to be a bloody scalpel. Okay. Right. So obviously, when we initially planned to do the Black Adam episode of the Real Podcasters, which meant we would have recorded earlier because I had an episode of Doctor Who to watch. That was a
Yes.
thing. So because we didn't record it all, I was still available anyway, so I watched it live. Like, actually live. I didn't watch it on iPlayer. I watched it on the TV, because heaven forbid you do that. Or 89 minutes of it. Second longest singular episode of Doctor Who ever, being only by the 5 Doctors. Now I'm just going to keep this like a very vague review, because for one, I know Dan hasn't watched it, and two, I don't know how much you actually know that goes on in this episode beyond the fact that a certain spiky-haired Scotsman appears at the end.
That is it. That is honestly it. Yeah.
Okay,
that is
good.
it.
Because I'm going to be completely up. Okay. Because I've been very vocal. The whole reason we're doing a big retrospective on the entire revived series of Doctor Who is so I can talk about this era. Because, well, for one, very little of it is on Letterboxd, so I don't really have a platform to talk about it. Because, I'm just like that. So we will eventually get to the point where I can get into the bits that I heavily dislike.
Yeah.
The one episode I really like, and the other episode that I find very enjoyable, but it's not good. And that is this episode. Because I can say this, I had a lot of fun with this.
Do you know what it is? I was really surprised when I was just, strolling through the filmography of Letterboxd, and just changing the posters and stuff, and then out of the blue comes your rating and review of the Doctor Who episode that you watched, and you give it like 3 out of 5. I was like, what?
Have you actually read the review then?
Most of it, yes.
Yeah, you see, I'm actually just currently looking at it to the point where I want to see how much I actually said that's actually spoiling. Back. I think I skipped out on a decent amount, mostly because I did put a spoiler warning on it.
I totally ignored it.
Well, clearly. It's interesting because I actually started comparing this to the Day of the Doctor. Convenient enough, because a lot of people, I think even we criticised it, it didn't really feel like a 50th anniversary special.
Yeah.
This feels like a 60th anniversary special. This one echoes more of the classic era, again, I'm really trying hard to not spoil anything.
Oh,
Because there's a...
the other thing I know, so you can kind of talk about this a little bit if you need to.
Okay.
I know Ace and Tegan are in it as well. I know
Yes.
that.
Yep.
Tennant, obviously.
Yep.
That's it. So I know those characters come back. And
Okay.
something about the Doctors as well. Don't know too much about that, but...
Just, honestly, if you can, ignore it until December because I'm not going to make you watch these
I'll
way
take
too
that.
early.
I'll take that.
Because the stuff that's in this that honestly you would scream at. Honestly. I could have screamed if I actually thought it was good.
So you screamed, but not for a good reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of just sort of like chuckled to myself and sort of like, there was like a fairly big smile on my face. I thought, oh wow, yeah, this is actually doing some good stuff. Like, honestly, as fan service, it's full of it. Like, it exists as fan service with a couple of credits and some other actors in it. And it really embraces a lot of the classic era, which I really appreciated. That felt... This is like the only time when Chibnall has done classic Who references and it's not felt lazy. He's actually done some really good stuff with it. There's also a thing that he does with the companions, which I think is such a genius move. And again, there's an instance where I could have cried because it's adorable, even if it's a character who I think is just a complete idiot. From my limited time with classic Who, Sacha Dhawan, he's the master in this. I kind of have to spoil that, it's been spoiled before. He proves that he's the MVP of this entire era. He chews every single corner of the screen. He's so damn good. And Jodie Whittaker's in this.
And
I kid you not, she has nothing to do in this. She's off screen for so much. Like, again, it's a 90-minute special. Quarter, maybe a third.
Wow, okay, that is not
offensive, frankly.
Yeah, that is pretty bad.
And you know what it is? It's a kind of episode where, like, if you didn't watch Series 13, or the Dalek New Year special thing, or the crappy thing with the Sea Devils, if you just watch Series 12 and then this, it's fine. You wouldn't have missed anything. It ties so much into old Who lore, but next to nothing from the last year or so. And I'm thinking, I actually find that slightly more offensive. Because it's like, oh, you've set up like 75 things and you've paid off 2 of them. Both of which are in this special. So again, I enjoy it. I like it. But that doesn't mean it's good. You know, there's plenty of films that I like that aren't good. And I'm happy to admit that.
So there's 13 series of Doctor Who, isn't there? I mean, I'm on 10, so I've got another 3 to go.
Yes. So you've got... so there's 3 main series with Whittaker, and there's the 2022 specials that have been this year.
Right.
So this is the final of 3. So in reality, she's only had 9 episodes for Series 13, so it's actually an episode less than the last few, which got dropped down to 10 anyway. But this is not a good regeneration story because it doesn't feel like it. It just feels like an anniversary special the year beforehand that just happens to have someone explode at the end. That being said, they're very clever with how they actually present the regeneration, because I'm not going to spoil this, but it's not inside the TARDIS. They're very clever this time around. It's like, okay, I won't explode it this time. That's fine, I'll do that this time. But I'd happily say this is probably the prettiest...
I don't know too much about the regeneration stuff, obviously, but now you've mentioned that it's not inside the TARDIS, I just kind of think of, like, old Doctor Who episodes where he just, like, regenerates in, like, the middle of a field or something, you know?
It's not in the middle of a field, but... for the most part, I think it's probably the prettiest regeneration I think I've seen. Like, visual effects wise, it's far more consistent than even like Capaldi's, because his was a bit. His was a bit ropey with weird like the visuals, but this one looked so much better. Even if a final line is, it further proves how just redundant this entire incarnation has been. That's like my general bit. It's weird, like, it's a week old, and if I was talking to anyone else, I would have spoiled the entire thing. But I've still got to subject you to this. So it only seems fair to keep it very
I've
vague.
seen worse.
Oh yes,
I really have.
Ace and Tegan. I actually forgot.
I know that Ace puts on the jacket and has the metal baseball bat again. I
Well,
know
of
that
course
for
she
certain.
does.
And of course she does, man.
Yeah.
Gotta happen.
I also want to know, is Janet Fielden Australian? Or is it just a character?
I'm
She is
pretty sure
Australian.
she's Australian. Yeah, I'm
I
pretty sure
couldn't
she's
tell.
Australian.
I couldn't tell if it's the character or not, because it's a bit like with Perry, because Nicola Bryant is English, but they made her put on an American accent because...
I'm gonna check because I might be lying to myself and our audience here.
And me, obviously, because I'm here. Because heaven forbid you lie to me about it. But yeah, I mean, Tegan hasn't got a lot to do in this.
No, she is actually Australian.
She's actually Australian. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, she is actually Australian.
Right. Yeah, Tegan is kind of pointless, frankly. Doesn't have much to do. Should have died about 4 times. Ace, I don't know how I feel whether putting the jacket back on, because I'm like, do you only have like one set of clothes that you've had for like 30 years? Like, that's getting into like nitpick territory when it comes to fan service. I'm like, I would have just given her like a new jacket. Just, you know. Also,
you can't beat the old school one though.
When they introduce her though, there is so little fanfare. It's just, there you go, she's there. It's like,
ta-da!
Like, she's literally the greatest Doctor Who companion in the entire show. Like, screw you.
She actually is. She actually is.
Don't reference the fact you met her, because I will actually skin you.
Well, now I'm gonna have to, because you've
No,
said
you're
it.
not.
Yes, I met her. Yes, I met her. I met Sylvester McCoy as well.
Dan is buffering. Oh, if only. Yeah, it's fine. As like a conclusion to this era, it's kind of pointless. As a regeneration story, it's kind of pointless. Is it fun as hell? My God, it is. And it was fun to laugh at it because it's still got some absolutely beautiful dialogue. If you're a gremlin.
If you're a gremlin.
Because, you know, they don't really talk. They just kind of grunt and shriek and have like vague bits of English dialogue, much like Chris Chibnall. As it turns out, he's actually a gremlin.
Don't make sense now. You pour water on him, turns into a gremlin.
And you get 20 seconds of Tennant, and you know what? It was like, we're in safe hands again. It's nice. it's nice again.
I saw a meme of something related to that. It's like, well, at least the world has Tennant again.
Yeah. It's like, oh, is it 2005 again? Excellent.
Somebody like did this whole poster thing, like a really 2005 poster thing with that shot of him in the TARDIS. From, I think it was obviously like a screen grab from this latest episode, and they just made it look like one of the old school posters from like 2005. He looks absolutely spot on. I was just like, you've got me. I'm sold.
Yeah. No, it's I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on it when we get to it. But as I say, I'm not going to force you to watch it now. You can wait until further down the line. But you will have to watch it. It's a rule. I'm sorry.
I know. It's fine.
I know. But yeah, that's my very, very scatterbrained review of that. There is a written version, as Dan has mentioned. There's a written version on Letterboxd, so you can check out my link to my Letterboxd is in the description below. As is Dan's. Now he's changed his because he's weird. Really, really weird.
What do you mean weird?
How weird?
Well, okay, yeah, I am weird.
That being said, it's nice to see you with one follower, as opposed to about 300 that no one listens to you on. No, I mean, in fairness, none of them listen to me either. So it's fine.
I know, like, I was just like 600 odd people would just like start following me. I'm like, why?
Well, because you were following like 2,500.
I wasn't though. I literally had like maybe less than 900. Little less.
I'm telling you right now, that is a lie.
Right, where's the proof? Where's this accusation coming from?
It's extinct now.
Yeah, much like that original. Original Letterboxd account. We'll never know.
Oh, yes. But yes, that has been my thoughts on that. Dan has been dissecting the few things that he's watched. Now, let's talk about something Halloweeny that's not Halloween. Thank God. Because I'm never doing that again. Let's talk just in general about the Universal monster movies. I think for a lot of people, probably some of the most important films in cinema, not just in horror, but I think in cinema, I think a lot. I mean, when I say these, we're mostly talking about the ones from the 30s and the 40s, and a few from the 50s. There is about 30. I'm not going to list them all because I haven't got the time for
No,
that.
we're
And I
just gonna
haven't seen
do
them all.
just the originals and talk about a few of the reboots. Because by God, I don't think we could really go through like every
Some,
single sequel.
well, no, of course not. No, we'll talk about like the main players that everyone knows. A little bit of origins on it though, because I like doing that. So Universal had like we'll say mild success in the 1920s with films like The Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Phantom of the Opera, both with Lon Chaney, but not the Lon Chaney you're thinking of. That's actually his father, as it turns out.
Yeah.
So Lon Chaney had portrayed The Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Phantom of the Opera. Annoyingly, The Phantom of the Opera that I was thinking of is the one from the 1920s. It's not the one I watched, annoyingly, because the one I watched isn't very good. Sorry, I'm just open with it. So the studio wanted to keep Lon Chaney on, but then he signed a contract with MGM, so he wasn't able to do anything else. But then passed away in 1930, so didn't even get to do any of it, unfortunately. So they looked at other actors to prop up their films, and then we got to the 1930s. And of course, in America, the big thing that occurred in the 1930s, beyond the war at the very end, was the Great Depression, where everything just stopped. And I mean, I'm not going to go into history on the Great Depression. If you want that, you can watch King Kong or something. It's all in there.
Is it?
Well, I mean, it's set in the Great Depression. Or at least, 1933 one is, as is the 2005 one, and then, what was it, Kong Skull Island is set in the Vietnam War, because of course it bloody is.
I know this is like going really off topic, but is there like a sequel to one of the like King Kong films where like King Kong has a wife and a child?
I think the Son of Kong.
That's it. Oh my God.
I'm not watching this. I will not watch it. I've only watched Son of Godzilla, and it was, poof. I mean, in fact, there's a lot of terrible Godzilla movies. Maybe that's like a topic for like the future. Ooh, there's a few of them. But yeah, anyway, so amid the Great Depression, people needed some form of escapism, and so they got Dracula and Frankenstein in 1931, which of course just started absolutely everything.
Yes.
So yeah, now, as I said, there's like 30 odd films made between 1931 and 1951. So that's like the sort of era I wanted to look at. As I say, I'm sure as hell not going to go through all of them because I simply don't have the time, Dan. Stop asking me to do that. It's like, honest to God.
I didn't do anything.
I don't care. You were saying it with your face, and that's just...
What do you mean I was saying it with my face?
You probably were. So yes, like the main ones that everyone knows, of course, you've got Dracula, Frankenstein, you've got The Mummy, The Invisible Man, Bride of Frankenstein, often considered one of the best sequels of all time. It's pretty good. The Wolfman, Phantom of the Opera, and Creature from the Black Lagoon. Those last two I finally watched this week and finished my little Blu-ray box set of Universal Monster movies, and my God, did it take a while. Like, I've owned that thing for like 3 or 4 years. I might have actually owned it maybe slightly longer. Maybe 5. A while.
I didn't actually realise Phantom of the Opera was part of like the Universal Monsters thing. I didn't realise that.
I mean, it's a bit like with The Invisible Man, where it's they basically gotten like the rights to it to do like their own versions. Of course, you got H.G. Wells wrote The Invisible Man, and so but then you watch the original and it's basically a comedy. In reality, it's not really a horror film. It's not until 2020 when Lee Winnell directed The Invisible Man, and that became a full-blown horror film. And it was great. Really, really great. But we'll get to the reboots later on. When I say reboots, we're talking more like the ones in the last 20 years, not like in the 70s. I might reference like the Hammer Dracula films, but I haven't watched them, so I don't think I've got much to say on that. You've probably seen them more than me,
I've seen Curse of Frankenstein and Dracula, the Hammer version.
Isn't that the one with Christopher Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Wait, okay. So, like I said, I could have sworn that Peter Cushing would... actually, no, Peter Cushing probably would have been a child at this point. I don't know. Anyway, so the main monsters, of course, are the ones that are in the title. So for you, which are like your favourites, really?
Ooh, I'm so glad you asked.
Cruel.
Oh. Well, look, I like them all. That's for certain. But if I had to like pick an absolute favorite, I'd probably say Frankenstein. Specifically, The Bride of Frankenstein, because I absolutely love the design of Frankenstein, The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Over like, especially with the reboots and stuff, I don't think they've ever quite gotten it as good as that. And like, I mean, it must have been like a simple time, you know, like it's none of this like digital stuff that we have nowadays. It's all just like costumes and makeup back then. But I love the creature from the Black Lagoon as well. Coolest monster ever. Regan's face maybe says a different story. And of course, Bela Lugosi is Dracula as well. Like, looks really cool. The Mummy, again, really cool. Boris Karloff as the Mummy.
Yeah.
Really cool design. The Invisible Man. Wasn't really keen on it at first, but I think over the years, after watching the reboot and this one is just hilarious.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I think off the top of my head, because I can't remember all the ratings that I've given for these. Like, I think the lowest one I can give was to the Phantom of the Opera. I think I gave it 2 or 2.5.
Ah, yeah, you gave Phantom of the Opera 2 because you give
okay, 2.
which may I say is just utter heresy. You
Well, no, it's just I just didn't care about anything going on. I did. Annoyingly, I found the opera stuff more interesting. Quite frankly.
Oh no, not
than
Phantom of the Opera. That's fine. It's Creature of the Black Lagoon. That's heresy. You gave that 2.5.
Did I give it 2.5? Yeah.
Shocking.
Well, because it's just all the same sort of thing.
Remember what I was saying about John Carpenter using like the sting from Michael Myers a bit too often? They use that same sting way too much with the creature.
All
The
the
dun, 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 with the hand and stuff. They use it all the time. You're just like...
And they use the exact same shot about 5 times with the hand. I'm like, he hasn't got that
Dun,
many
dun, dun.
hands, man. How weird. No, I actually think maybe of my favourites of those films, I actually think might actually be The Invisible Man, because I think it's the one I had the most fun with.
Yeah.
Maybe The Mummy, though that one's quite slow, and I think I only liked it just mostly because of the fact that of the alter ego that the Mummy uses is just the name of the guy from the 1999 film, and I had absolutely no idea. So I just came out of it. It's like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that one. That was interesting. It's a weird callback in 1999. All of a sudden.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. It's been a while since I've watched the original one, so.
But I mean, it's quite weird for me because I mean I've noticed this a lot, and it's something that initially I felt really conflicted on, but more recently I've been like, yeah, whatever, it happens. Is the fact I go to these much older films with a lot of notoriety, like a proper icon of cinema, and I just come out of it being like, yeah, it was alright.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah.
I think the first time I properly noticed that was with Citizen Kane, when I watched that a couple of years ago, and I was like, yeah, it's alright. When a lot of people, especially like major cinephiles, would be like, oh, it's the greatest film of all time. I'm like, I mean, it probably was at a point, but I don't think it's fair to be doing that now, especially with some of the films that we get these days. I mean, granted, this year's been a bit dire, which we'll address in January, as I've been planning for a while.
Yeah.
That list was difficult. But no, it's like going to these older films and I'm like, should I be expecting them to be good? But then I'm like, well, no, because I shouldn't be assuming that for really anything, really. I'll just go in and just see how it is. If it's good, excellent. If it's not, whatever. And I'm never going to mincemeat my words. This is like a fairly philosophical way of saying I don't think these films are absolutely amazing. I mean, there's some great stuff in it, but I mean, stuff like even like Bela Lugosi's Dracula, I don't find very interesting at all. I just find him quite funny, which I know that's kind of... It wasn't at the time, because the kind of film it is, it was it's made during the point when everyone's lives is at the bottom of a barrel that they can't even afford, and this is the kind of film that like they needed. So obviously for the time, absolute perfection.
Yeah, definitely.
Put it out now and it'll be panned across the board and it'll make about 17 cents probably, maybe slightly more.
Probably.
Maybe slightly more than like a what's his name? Maybe like a John Travolta film that just comes out and he's just so utterly weird in it. Oh, speaking of people that's gone down anywhere, weird, just like Jones off to John Travolta and his choice in movies. But yeah, probably my like preferred monster. Well, Yeah, preferred monster and film is probably The Invisible Man, just because I wasn't expecting it to be a comedy, quite frankly.
I think I'd have to pick probably Bride of Frankenstein as like my all-time favorite Universal monster film.
Yeah, I went into that being like, everyone loves this. Like when they have it like alongside stuff like Terminator 2 and a bunch of other sequels where like the sequel is like the definitive version of that franchise, and you're like, what the hell does this do? And I can totally see it because, like everyone is far more developed, and Bride of Frankenstein gets about 6 minutes of screen time. Poor sod.
It's a very small amount of screen time, but it's good.
Yeah, and I would definitely still say
it's a good 6 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I would say it's a good film, but I think I still had more. I can see you making faces there. You just realised what you just said, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, do I pile onto that? No, I won't. I'm nice. Stop making faces, Dan. This is serious. This is a serious discussion on some.
I think, are we going to do like a runner-up one as well? I think if we're going to do a runner-up one, I'd probably say it's a tie between The Wolfman and The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
I'd probably put Bride of Frankenstein as my runner-up because I still do like that and I do think it's a good film. Wolfman, I still... Like, and I'm sorry, I know when we get to the remake of The Wolfman later, but I cannot take that character seriously when it's a film from the 1940s. I don't care if it's not set in the 1890s, and he's called Larry.
Yeah, it's...
Like, I'm sorry. Larry
it's like the most generic name ever.
It's
Larry.
Not generic, it's just stupid. I don't like Larry as a name.
I think why I've got that as a runner-up because I just find it like really tragic that he's just cursed with like lycanthropy.
I don't. He bloody deserves it.
What, does he deserve it because he's called Larry, does he?
No, because he keeps on asking the girl out and she's like, no. He's like, okay, I'll pick you up there. It's like, yeah, no, you're not. Which, if I'm going to be completely honest, most of these films, what is the woman there for, frankly? To be ogled at or to be kidnapped?
Well, yeah.
That's probably why I didn't really like Creature from the Black Lagoon. Okay. This isn't a remake of Creature from the Black Lagoon that I'm going to reference, but I'm going to reference The Shape of Water by Guillermo del Toro, which might as well be a remake of Creature from the Black Lagoon, because you do have the creature falling in love with a woman.
Yeah.
But it's also the other way around, and it feels meaningful. I don't think he ever kidnaps her. He just floods her apartment, and they have some fun, as it turns out. Have you actually seen The Shape of Water?
No. It's on the list because I don't know if you've noticed, but the Cabinet of Curiosities came out, which is a whole horror thing by Guillermo del Toro.
I haven't watched it yet.
All of them up until like whichever one was last, and by God, they're messed up. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna watch it at some point, I think, because I'm pretty interested in it.
Oh yeah, me too, definitely. Because I like his version of horror anyway.
Yeah.
I just find it funny with Shape of Water. Me and my girlfriend watched that on Valentine's Day.
When did it come out, Shape of Water? What year did it come out?
2018.
2018, okay.
2018.
Okay.
Or at least, well, it's 2018 here. It's a bit like with something like Hacksaw Ridge, where it came out like months later in the UK, so I class it as a 2017 film, but it came out in 2016 in America. Bit like with Split as well. That came out in 2016 and then got actually released in like a few months later. But anyway, but yeah, these stories in these older films, I'd be hard pressed to say they work very well a day. They're either really dull, very very quick, like just over an hour, and you like never release these nowadays. Like it would just be like a TV movie, or it would be like what like Marvel calls a Marvel Studios special presentation, which is the most patronising title you could give to a TV movie. Like, I hate that. Special presentation. Like, shut up, Disney.
Do you know what it is? Like, I just want, like, that phrase with your face on a billboard. I hate that.
I mean, I'm surprised there isn't one yet.
I know, like, honestly, I could just picture it, like, being on a billboard. It just looks so great. Universal Monsters sequels. I hate that.
You got to actually think, just like before I get back onto the stories, because I just like going off on a tangent here. Yeah, you Yeah, you have to think that Werewolf by Night thing is the first big budget werewolf thing in years.
Yeah, I'm still
I
yet to
hate
actually
that.
watch it. Oh, for God's
Why
sake,
is
now
Disney doing that?
why have I done this to myself? And God's sake.
Werewolf films is definitely going to be a topic in the future because there's some stinkers. But anyway, yeah. So like, as I say, most of the time it's just the monster in question is pining after someone, usually a woman. Well, I say usually, it's always.
I
there's,
think
like,
Creature of the Black
19
Lagoon's
things.
probably like the
Worst offender
best.
for that.
Yeah, like definitely the worst offender for that. Because I mean, like I can't really remember too much of it, but it's pretty much the creature just starts falling in love with this woman or something like that on like a riverboat or something, and he kidnaps her. That's pretty much all I remember from it. I have to rewatch it again.
Yeah, it's just knowing that most of these characters just have about as much character as a sack of black and white potatoes.
But he's not actually like the creature from the Black Lagoon. He's credited as the Gill Man, isn't he?
I don't actually. I didn't see him in the credits that they put up at the beginning and briefly at the end. But I don't know if it was like he's referred to as the Gill Man off screen. It's a bit like whenever they credit Michael Myers in the Halloween films, he's just credited as the Shape.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's something like that. Yeah, because I could have sworn it's like credited as Gill Man, or maybe it's just like mentioned off screen or something. I don't know.
That's such a weird. I mean, yeah, fair enough. He is literally a Gill Man, but you could just call him the Creature. I mean, I don't think there's any other like big franchise that's got the Creature. There's like a name for something, unless you count like the Thing, but it's not like.
I think there's also the Creeper as well, from something.
I don't think it's gonna be that. Okay, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't even say like what's like the best story out of all of them. Again, probably still the Invisible Man, just because that one's actually probably the most engaging. Otherwise, again, the same runner-up, Bride of Frankenstein, I think.
Ooh, this is a toughie for me because it's a tie between Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. I mean, like, as I said, I like all of them, but I think Frankenstein is probably like, it's quite close to the source material. Like, yeah, it's nowhere near like the novel. The novel is just totally different.
Oh, the novel is that. I mean, I'm sure I've got it on my Kindle somewhere because it's in like the public domain and stuff. Hence why we get so many versions, which we'll get to. But I have been meaning to read the book because it is ridiculous. It's a really hefty book. But I know what happens by like the end, and I think it is actually pretty tragic. It's a shame that I don't think we've ever actually seen it on film. At least,
no, it's
at least how
a lot of
how
stuff
the
is
book
missing
ends.
out of the film.
I think I might have seen a bit of it.
This is the closest to it. This original film.
I'm trying to remember if the National Theatre one with Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller did it, but I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to ask my girlfriend because I know we watched it during COVID. But I mean, because that was actually really good because when they had when they had them two doing it, and depending on the performance, they switched it up. So the Cumberbatch was Dr. Frankenstein and Johnny Lee Miller was the monster, and other times it was the other way around.
Yeah.
Which I really like that. It's also just funny having two versions of Sherlock in it. That's really annoying. But yeah, seeing as we're going on to the reboots, we'll go into a little bit on the reboots that like we've got. I mean, I'm not going to go through the Hammer ones. You probably could a little bit.
I mean, I can briefly mention them if you want to.
Oh yeah, why not?
Well, I think I haven't seen too much of these. I think I've seen the Mummy version, which it's fine. It's pretty good. It's entertaining nonetheless. It's essentially just like
the same film,
but in colour, more or less, with different casts. That's really the only change, to be honest. It's still pretty good. Then there's Curse of Frankenstein again, similar kind of things. It's basically like the British take on the Universal Monsters era with a few changes here and there.
Yeah.
But I think Dracula is probably the best one, and some people much prefer the Hammer version compared to Bela Lugosi's version. I think Christopher Lee's Dracula is much better, in truthfulness.
Yeah.
Really looks the part. I mean, Bela Lugosi's cool, but it's not Christopher Lee cool, okay?
No.
They're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah. You do have the Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola in 1982, which took me a while to get. I mean, I've got it up there somewhere. I think it's pretty good. Actually, It's just annoying. I didn't want to watch the full film because we had to I mean, properly dissect one scene in English in secondary school for about 3 months, and it's the scene when, sadly, the worst actor in the entire film, Keanu Reeves, rocks up at Dracula's. I was about to say his house. It's not a house. It's a bloody estate.
That was a bad time to take a drink.
He rocks up to Dracula's flat.
He rocks up to Dracula's crib.
I am on budget. Low budget.
I kind of forgot that Keanu Reeves is in
It's
it.
a cost of living crisis Harker.
Johnny Depp's in this as well, isn't he? Is he?
No. Is he?
No.
No.
Is he?
No.
No.
I'm sure he's not.
No.
Is he?
I'll check. I'll
Damn it,
do a
I'm
check.
pretty certain he's not. He's not in a version of
I'm pretty sure he is. Maybe I'm just talking out my arse.
I don't,
Which, again, is, you know...
A constant.
cheeky.
I said I was going to be nice. I lied.
No, he's not. I'm thinking of blummin' Keanu Reeves, though.
How can you get them mixed up? Honestly.
I know. I don't know how. Oh, well.
I know where the bastard sleeps. Like, shut up, Keanu. Christ almighty. I hate him in that film. Like, his accent is atrocious. But I do
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I think Gary Oldman as Dracula is really good.
Yeah. There was that other one that did in 2014, Dracula Untold, with Luke Evans.
No.
You know what it is?
No.
I had so much fun with that. I mean,
No.
it's terrible.
No.
But never turn Dracula
No.
Excuse me, Dan.
No.
No.
It's
No.
just bad.
Just never turn Dracula into a superhero, which is fine, because I think in the exact same year they did I, Frankenstein, where they turned Frankenstein's monster into Aaron Eckhart from The Dark Knight, and he's all chiseled, he's all badass. I'm like, what
It's
the
Buff
hell
Frankenstein.
Are you doing?
It's Buff Frankenstein.
Frankenbuff.
Frankenbuff.
Frankenbuff. Yeah, hate it. It's atrocious. But yeah, let's talk about The Mummy, 1999. Now, look, here's the thing. I'd absolutely dedicate an entire episode of this podcast to
Oh,
this
I know.
film,
You
'cause
could do like an hour's worth of a retrospective on this film,
I
without a doubt.
adore The 99. Like, honestly, it is one of the best films ever. Like, it just is.
It is a
It's
really good
so
film.
good.
And
of
considering,
course-
like, I only watched it quite recently, I'm going to say.
I know. I was going to say, you had never seen it, and it's amazing. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it is really
Like,
good. Really
I
good
think as
film.
well. I think it's the only time they've ever been able to replicate in like Indiana Jones with a different actor. In this case, with Brendan Fraser, who's basically, we must protect Brendan Fraser. He must be safe. The pure sods. Of course, that spawned a couple of sequels and a whole load of Scorpion King rip-offs, which we don't need to talk about.
Ugh.
Well,
No. No, we don't. I can't believe, though, like, they actually made the Scorpion King a thing. Ugh.
And to think, technically, I'm sure the Scorpion King film is still a prequel to the Mummy.
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm sure.
but he's
I'm
talking
sure it, yeah.
in English, and I'm like, oh, come on, Dwayne. Honestly, have a bit more character, which is what I've been saying for every single film he's ever made, as it turns out. The same for Black Adam, which we spoke about briefly. Don't care.
Adam.
And then, of course, we've got the 2017 Mummy film, which is ironic because it's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
It is.
I paid to watch that in a cinema.
I saw it on Netflix not so long ago because I was up at like 6 o'clock in the morning for some stupid reason. My brain was just like, okay, time to get up.
Yeah.
So I was just like, ugh, I'll just stay in bed and watch this. And I think 45 minutes in, I just fell back asleep. Just gonna say I watched the film.
It's a rare instance. I have never rewatched it. I vow never to.
Can't blame you.
Because it's absolutely like it's just the epitome of bad mum
Oh, it is
cinema.
like it's really bad.
And
you
but I
poor
think
sod,
that's,
you
like-
paid for a ticket to see this absolute fecal matter.
Well, I mean, it was back in 2017. I didn't have any like cinema pass thing because there wasn't anything nearby to warrant it. There was like the Gala Cinema in Durham, which is a travesty of a thing. Sorry, it just is. Or at least the cinema bit is. The theatre bit's pretty cool. Then you've got something like Van Helsing in 2004. I could be very cruel and just dedicate an episode to this, but I know you really don't like it.
Look,
all I'll say.
Right, okay.
Here's the thing. Okay. every criticism you've had, I can totally get behind. Honestly, I can. I can see why someone would absolutely despise this film.
Yeah.
But I watched it when I was a kid, and I've watched it every
Yeah,
year since. So
I'll give you
thanks to
that.
my dad on that
Yeah.
one, because it's a lot of nostalgia, which, fair enough. Same with this one, like The Mummy Returns. But that's actually quite fun. This is also a hell of a lot of fun, if really, really stupid. Really stupid.
Yeah, it is really stupid.
It's one of
I
the
think
stupidest things I've ever seen in my life, but my God, is it not entertaining as hell having Wolverine
the only thing
with
that
a-
I really
with like a
liked
crossbow?
about that were the steampunked up Frankenstein. I think that was pretty
Oh, I
cool.
love that.
That was.
That's
I'll
such
give
a
you
good
that.
idea.
It's pretty cool, but the rest of the film's a bit.
That being said, I have said before, I'm pretty sure I've said it on air, that my personal favourite version of Dracula, irrespective of whether or not it's faithful, or if it's actually any good, is Richard Roxburgh as Dracula in Van Helsing. He's so much fun. Like, he's
He is
hamming it up, and it's great. Like, I
He is
love
pretty
it to
fun.
bits.
I will say that, despite my really bad thoughts toward that film, steampunk Frankenstein and him as Dracula, like, he is pretty fun as Dracula.
That and the score. The score is legendary. Alan Silvestri did an absolutely amazing job with that.
Can't really remember much of the score, and I'm usually one for all the scores, as you know, but I can't really remember the score, to be honest.
I'd say a heresy, but for many people it's a bad movie, so it's not really heresy. It's just
It's just
good
yeah.
for you.
Yeah, thumbs up.
Now, I did mention this a couple of weeks ago, and I did say I'll get to it more in a few weeks now, and that is the Joe Johnston version of The Wolfman, which I know you've seen that one now, haven't you?
Yeah, I also quite like it as well. I think it's maybe on the same level with the original. Again, I'd have to kind of go back and rewatch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I gave
really
them,
like it.
I gave them both the same rating, but I honestly prefer this one. And again, that one is actual heresy, because it was panned across the board. It was a box office bomb and was literally the definition of production hell, which I'm not sure how much you actually know about that.
Not
side of
too
things.
much. I mean, I know that it had its problems, but I couldn't
Yeah.
really say what was the biggest problem ever. I mean, I'm sure you know this.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah. So the film was announced in 2006, with Benicio del Toro, playing the character. They had a screenplay, and they got a director, Mark Romanek, I think that's how you pronounce his name. His original vision was to infuse a balance of cinema in a popcorn movie scenario. So basically, the sort of thing you'd get nowadays, where it's like, take something like very classic, old vintage Hollywood,
Yeah.
but try and inject a lot more like energy and action into it. He's talking about how when there's a certain amount of money involved, these things make studios and producers a little nervous doing something a little bit off kilter.
Yeah.
So naturally, there was a lot of stuff at loggerheads. January 2008, that director leaves, and there was like so many different directors and stuff vying for it. And then they finally hired Joe Johnston in February, and the film was scheduled to shoot in March. So he had a month, and he took the script and rewrote it entirely with a different screenwriter. And half the time they were writing on the fly, writing on set.
God.
It wasn't fun at all.
It doesn't sound it. I mean, I can think of nothing more stressful than
I'd
having to
hate it.
rewrite on set. Like, oh my god.
So it was. So I mean, this is why you have two different versions of the film, and why most of the transformation stuff was done with CGI, because originally it was going to be practical.
So what's the two versions? I'm assuming it's just like theatrical and whatever else cut.
Yeah, theatrical and unrated cut. So that adds about, I think it was about 18 minutes of new footage. Like 18 minutes is a good chunk to
Yeah, definitely.
to put in. I mean, it's still a short film. It's still just under 2 hours if it's like the extended one, which I much prefer anyway, because a lot more is added. You've got Max von Sydow's got an appearance. He's the one that gives Lawrence Talbot the wolf staff, which you see in the original film. It's said specifically that he got it from a visit, to a trip in Gévaudan, which is where the beast of Gévaudan comes from. Probably one of the more iconic stories of werewolves in European history. So that's actually quite nice. It's a nice little reference.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it is mostly just the same film. It just adds in a couple of little stuff that was basically plot holes. There's also 3 different endings.
God.
One of them is the version you see in the film.
Yeah.
One of them is Gwen dying. And then she shoots him, but she's already dead.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is he bites her, she shoots him, and she survives. So you're like, oh, are we going to get a sequel with her now?
So I'm assuming like there's a different ending on like the extended one, or is it just the same as the theatrical?
No, the ending is exactly the same in both. It's just a case where the other 2 were just released as like deleted scenes. But either way, it always ends basically with Hugo Weaving's character always getting bitten, but there's only one version where it ends with like a shot of him.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, if they're stuck with the ending with Gwen Conliffe getting bitten, I'm pretty certain that Emily Blunt wouldn't have come back for a sequel.
Yeah.
but that's because I think 98% of the crew probably wouldn't have done it either. It's like, I hate
No,
this.
no, I can't imagine the crew would have been
That being
too
said,
happy.
yeah. That being said, I actually think this is probably the best. It's one of the best looking films I've ever seen in my life, despite it being so heavily just screwed over in like every shape and form. But even the design for the Wolfman, I think, is amazing. Like, I love it.
It's a really, really good design. I think that's why I have rated it quite like high. I mean, I know I've rated it the same as the Wolfman, but like it's still a really cool design. And you'd think that like with it being a reboot, that they'd probably lose some of that quality over the design. But I think it's
definitely,
really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And as I say, I would quite like to do like a werewolf-centered, like werewolf cinema video, episode at some point, because some of my favorite werewolf stuff is the stuff that no one knows about. Because quite frankly, werewolves have had like the wrong end of the furry stick for years. Like,
sausages.
Well, yes, besides that, but that was 20 years ago, Dan. The best werewolf film is from 20 years ago. Second best is from 40 years ago. So think about that one.
Yeah.
And the third best is American Werewolf in Paris. It's not. It's not.
It's not.
But I'd very much like to discuss that at some point. I think the only other reboot I'd like to talk about is probably The Invisible Man from 2020. That's like the last major one we got. I will mention though first that this was supposed to be part of the same franchise with the 2017 Mummy, because Universal was so set on their own cinematic universe. They set it up with the Mummy and opened it with the Universal logo and then Dark Universe. I'm like, you are desperate. which in fairness, when you think about it, the Universal monster movies is really the first shared universe in like cinema. That doesn't mean it's good. So the Invisible Man was going to be part of this. There was that famous image that was released with some of the main actors that were going to be in it. So Johnny Depp was there. He was going to be the Invisible Man. You had I've forgotten his name. It's Javier Bardem, who was Silver in Skyfall. He was going to be Frankenstein's monster. Of course, you had Russell Crowe as Jekyll and Hyde. You had Sophia Patella as I don't know her name. Her character in The Mummy, terrible. And Tom Cruise. Funny enough, that actual image, which like has them all like stood and sat next to one another, none of them were there on the same day. It was just photoshopped. I was like, oh, that is again desperate. It's beautiful.
Oh God.
But no, so I mean, like the Wolfman was going to be part of it as well. They're going to be doing that as far as
so essentially it was just going to be like a rebooted Universal Monsters thing, more or less.
Basically, it was going to be doing like horror and action, hence where the 2017 Mummy film went and failed. As I'm sure that they were going to do, actually the first Frankenstein film they were going to do was actually a remake of Bride of Frankenstein, and they were going to have Angelina Jolie as the Bride of Frankenstein. But I
know they've done a couple of Frankenstein reboots. They did like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with
Kenneth
what's her
Branagh.
face? Who's got it in it?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I can never remember her blooming name.
Well, it's not Florence Pugh, clearly.
No, it's definitely not Florence Pugh. It's
I'm Norton, a trend day.
right. You remember the name of the Death Eater in Harry Potter? The woman
Helena
who's like,
Bonham Carter.
Yes, her.
Really?
She's
that her?
in it. Yeah, she's in it.
Someone at work dressed up as her for Halloween. That's actually a bit
Like,
of a
I can
coincidence.
never ever remember the bleeding name. I'm just gonna double check that she's actually in it because, yes, it is. Yeah, she is.
She is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's Elizabeth. She plays Elizabeth.
I've got absolutely no idea.
It's actually all right. It's not too bad. It's all right.
Yeah. But yes, I mean, they was all going to be under the same banner of the Dark Universe, and then the Mummy failed and flopped very, very badly. So they're like, oh, okay, we'll do something else. So they scrapped all that, and they made the Invisible Man just a standalone thing, going more into the science fiction side of things as well, which I really appreciated. Because I think you watched it just a few weeks before I did, and I definitely talked about it on here at some point, like months ago. But I thought that was really damn good. Like, I had a lot of fun with that.
I thought it was really good. A lot of fun. Really quite violent in some ways.
Oh yeah, very, very scary.
Very different from the original film. I mean, like, the original is just this guy messing with people. This guy just takes it to a whole new level.
Which, in fairness, he also messes with people, but just in like a far
very sinister way.
crueler fashion.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm gonna make you like look as if you've killed somebody.
Yeah, because why not? Because it's easy. But yeah, it is like really sadistic, and it's the kind of film you get nowadays in terms of like the subject matter and the theme stuff. But it works really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think it definitely stands up with like the 1999 Mummy for being probably like one of the best remakes of the Universal monster stuff I think we ever got. Even if the Invisible Man never felt like a monster, quite frankly, or at least to me, because it's like you said, like you kind of forget that stuff like that or a version of Phantom of the Opera is part of that franchise. Because you'd be like, is it really? That's a bit weird.
I mean, God, there's a few reboots of Phantom of the Opera. I mean, I haven't like seen too much of the original Phantom of the Opera. All I kind of know is it's just about a disfigured guy who wears a mask and things happen. I couldn't really tell you much more than that.
Yeah, I've seen the Joel Schumacher one with Gerard Butler, but that's like when it's just like the musical.
Yeah.
But all like the singing and stuff, which I wasn't a big fan of that one, frankly. I was kind of forced to watch it just because a friend of mine, she was like big on musicals, so I ended up watching that. I was like, why are you subjecting me to this? She also subjected me to Cats, so that's even worse.
Oh, no.
It just ruined everything. It took us a long time to become a fan of musicals, and it's because of that. Just like, I never want to watch anthropomorphized cats again. And I watched that damn thing 3 times. One in a theatre, one on DVD, and the bloody film they did a couple of years ago, and I'm like, I just hate myself.
Yeah,
and I still don't understand the plot of that, but anyway.
Going back to The Invisible Man, I think...
Yes, please do, thank you.
Get away from those disgusting musicals. I think it's a lot more horror-focused, and I'm glad there's a lot more science fiction stuff in it, especially like how the suit goes with the how it turns invisible and things like this, how it reflects off surfaces and things. It's a lot more sciencey compared to the original one, which I like.
I don't mind, frankly.
Yeah.
It is going to be interesting though, because I know that they're not doing a big shared universe thing, which is fine because we don't need that anymore. I think we're kind of past that kind of phase.
Yeah.
But I know we are getting a reboot of The Wolfman again, this time by Lee Winnell. And as far as I know, Ryan Gosling is going to be starring in it. I was like, that's very unusual because he doesn't do stuff like that at all.
Bit strange.
That being said, it's slightly better than who was initially going to play it.
It wasn't Jared Leto, was it?
No.
Oh, thank God.
Do you know how we were going to talk about Black Adam last week?
It wasn't The Rock, was it?
It was going to be The Rock.
No!
I was like,
For
he's
God's
like,
sake.
like, I'm basically picturing a cloud covered in fur. And I'm like, I hate that. Surprisingly
Again,
enough.
with the billboard. I hate that.
I hate him. I hate him. Oh, Dwayne. Dwayne instead of Larry. Oh, it's even worse, actually. Hi, I'm Dwayne. No.
No. Please,
No.
no.
I can guarantee there's fan art of like The Rock being the Wolfman, and it's probably some of the worst things that like any artist has ever done in the history of anything ever. Thank God we got Ryan Gosling instead. But
So
otherwise,
is there like a speculated release date for that, or is it just sort of like
nah.
just
Again,
announcements and stuff?
No, it's been in development for ages, and I think even Gosling was saying like they're not rushing it because they do want to get it right. And I was like, that's a good idea, because otherwise you're going to end up with another production hell. Again, I say that as if the 2010 film isn't good. Like, well, I wouldn't say it's good, but I do enjoy it, and I do, as I say, I do prefer it to the original. But that does go to like my final thoughts thing is. Obviously, these films, as I say, are very, very iconic, and we wouldn't be where we are without them.
Yeah.
But do they still work as films in 2022? Bear in mind, some of them are nearly 100 years old now.
Yeah. Some of them, parts of them, yes, but some of them definitely not. I think some of the sequels as well. I know we haven't mentioned them, but some of the sequels just would not work at all.
Oh no, definitely not.
I'm getting all snotty again.
Excellent.
I promise I'm not like getting emotional or anything. You know, it
you
is
actually
generally
are.
the sinuses.
There's been so
yeah,
many mummy sequels, and it just the hand of the mummy.
Oh, don't give me that crap. No,
Is it actually called the hand of the mummy, or is it like the mummy's hand?
the mummy's hand.
Ugh, that's even worse.
It might even be like the curse of the mummy's hand or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember. Don't really want to.
I'm assuming there's a spin-off to that called The Curse of the Mummy's Other Hand.
The curse of the mummy's limb.
Ooh, toe. Little toe.
The curse of the mummy's appendage.
Ugh. That sounds horrible now.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Or does it
think
sound
some of them would kind of work, but some of them just really wouldn't. I think
No,
Frankenstein would still work. I mean, like, it's...
Frankenstein absolutely... Well, here's the thing,
yeah.
because if I will reference one more thing that's technically done a bit of Frankenstein, even though it's not really, and it's funny enough, it's another Doctor Who related thing, which we will get to again later on in the year, and that is with Series 12, with The Haunting of Villa Diodati, which has Mary Shelley in it, literally while she's writing Frankenstein. Technically, it's set on the same night where it's like that massive summer storm. They're stuck in the house, and her and all her mates are talking about scary stories just to get inspiration, and then rocks up a half converted Cyberman, and there's so much. Oh, honestly, amazing. Like, I love it. It's such a good idea, especially because it's a Cyberman that still has emotions. Like, it gets angry. Like, there's literally the best line any Cyberman has ever had, I think, beyond bits in Series 10, is a line he has to the Doctor, which you never hear from like a Cyberman. Again, it sounds like such like a standard line from any other villain, but from a Cyberman it's perfect, and it's, "You irritate me." And I love that. That's so good. It's such a good thing. It's so good. But at least that one does something quite interesting with the mythos of Frankenstein, which is quite, because again, it's not like an adaptation of it at all. It's just it's just with
doing
the
its
author.
own thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great. And I think realistically, if these films are going to survive for like years to come, you really need to evolve us, because I mean, like the Invisible Man did it. Werewolves in general, there's so many ways you can do it, frankly. The Mummy, never do again. Just leave it. 1999 is perfect. Just never do it again. Frankly.
We'll leave it at 1999. Everything else, yeah.
And Dracula, well, vampires. That's just going to be a constant. Frankly, I do need to watch the BBC. Well, if it's the BBC one, but like
there's a BBC series called Dracula.
Yeah, the one that Stephen Moffat did. which I never finished. I think I got an episode and a bit in, and I thought, it's
I'm pretty
alright.
sure I've watched like one episode and I just never went back to it. I think I just totally forgot about it, in all honesty.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember much of it. Apparently it's alright, but I don't know what happens in the third episode. Apparently, because I know my girlfriend watched like the entire thing, and she mentioned there's something that happens for the majority of the third episode that comes out of nowhere, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's a massive spoiler. And I was like, well, it's not going to be that like Dracula dies, so I feel like it's a vampire. So I still to this day do not know what it is, and I've done very well to avoid the spoilers. I'm assuming you know what it is.
No clue.
Even better than
Not an absolute clue.
I've got my theories, but I'm pretty certain they're all wrong. Because again, it's like a period horror thing. Because you would do that for Dracula. I've got a horrible feeling it doesn't do that in the end. Oh Jesus! Oh no! Is it set in the future?
I just hope, right?
Jim.
Like, in all seriousness, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't understand why we went to like sparkly vampires and stuff.
Twilight.
Like, I don't know why it went
Teen
that way.
angst.
Like, look,
what is going on?
Dracula Untold isn't exactly a good film. It's pretty terrible, to say the least. But how did we go from like even like underworld stuff where it's like vampires are at war with werewolves?
Yeah.
It's like, what? This is ludicrous. What the hell is this?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I feel like that's like the last time there was like a big budget werewolf thing beyond Werewolf by Night. I don't think there's been anything else, and it's really sad because I love like the concept of the werewolf so much. And I went through a phase last year of just watching a bunch of them, and it's like big stuff and really, really small stuff. I did watch one this year called Bloodthirsty. That's on Shudder. They've got, pardon the pun, but I got a mauling by the critics, and I absolutely loved it. It was great.
Yeah. I've never understood Underworld. Like, I don't know where the hell it came from. Like, you get like
and a script.
What script? I mean, Jesus Christ.
It was written
I've watched the first one. I've watched the first one. And I just saw what the hell is going on. Like,
pretty certain my dad likes. Yeah, I'm pretty certain my dad likes those films for some reason. But then there's a lot of films that he likes.
Like, there's a load of them on Netflix, and I was just like, well, I've never seen them, so I'll just watch the first one, see what the hell it's all about. Like, about 40 minutes in, I just thought, yeah, I'm just like not here at all. What's going on?
I think it came just after The Matrix, and you can tell because it's just everyone's in black leather.
Yeah, it's
bouncing.
I was kind of gonna say that it feels very Matrixy, but there's like vampires and CGI werewolves. That's it.
I'm never gonna watch those. I've got
please
no
don't. Please don't.
Fine, I won't.
They're not good. They're not very good.
That's fine. That's fine.
But I hope they just like bring back the old style vampires again. Sick of seeing all this sparkly crap.
I actually think it'd be good. Well, because especially because we talked about Nosferatu towards the beginning of this year because it was the 100-year anniversary. But I'm kicking myself. I haven't watched the 1979 one yet. Cause I'm
very keen to. I mean, I've quite recently rewatched the original one, and for a silent film, it's still absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it's perfect. I actually saw some colorized footage of it. The like someone had done it. It kind of takes like the novelty away, but it's a good idea. But of course, we're getting the new version of Nosferatu by Robert Eggers very soon.
Maybe this will be like the closest thing we get to like old school vampirism again.
It's like I think it's like the 1840s in Germany, so it's perfect. It's like the perfect setting.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's weird how in order to make these kind of characters work better, or at least some of them, you have to take it right back.
Yeah.
So I mean, like Dracula for sure. With Frankenstein, I actually think you could do. The reason why I actually referenced the Haunting of Villa Diodati is because the Cybermen really are like the perfect modern Frankenstein kind of thing.
Yeah,
so you
definitely.
could absolutely do Frankenstein in the modern day, and it would still work. I think.
Quite easy to. I think you've just got to have the right kind of idea for it.
Yeah, I mean, Phantom of the Opera. You could probably do Phantom of the K-pop musical or something.
Phantom of the K-pop musical.
I'm
It's
actually
just like a
trying to-
load of like marshmallow and like over the top like Korean like language and that. It's just like, can you imagine it? Like
I'm not even going to try and do music like that. I'm going to offend everyone if I
like
do
like
that.
really like over the top like graphics and that. It would just be so bad.
Or would it be so good? It is
I mean,
so bad it's good.
Like I could just like if I couldn't see it as being like a feature film, it would have to be a musical kind of thing, like the Phantom of the K-pop, like
Yeah.
the Phantom of K-pop. Oh God,
I'm saying it in my head, it sounds terrible all of a sudden.
I kind of want to see it at the same time.
Fine, I'll write it then, if that's the case.
Like-
Jesus.
Like just like giant like marshmallows with faces and like just loads of like wacky Korean text and stuff just zipping around the screen.
Okay, you know what? I really want to. I mean, I'm not going to write it in reality because I don't listen to K-pop.
Well, neither do I, but now that you've
Really,
mentioned
surprisingly.
this, oh right, you're pushing the boundaries here. Like, oh, you are really. I'm just gonna do what the creature from the Black Lagoon just grab you from under a windowsill and just drag you down to the depths of concert.
That's a bit cruel.
I mean, yeah, it is pretty hidden concert to be honest. God knows
Jesus,
what's dwelling in those
well,
sewers.
Well.
The creature
Depending
of
on
concert.
concert in Chestler Street, bearing in mind if there's any like listeners from outside of the northeast who have absolutely no idea what we're on about. I can't even try and explain it because I'm trying to think like what's like the best comparison that's like further south because I don't live in the south. I don't know. It's the difference between London and I don't know Kent. I haven't got a clue.
Couldn't tell you.
But yes, I think like we got to the conclusion that like these films, they absolutely worked for their time. Some of them still work, but I think in reality, I don't think overall they really they don't all entirely work now.
Yeah.
Especially because most of it is just look, a pretty lady kidnap. The end.
It's been done over like hundreds of times in different formats, like Creature from the Black Lagoon, King Kong, vampires. It's been done like vampires kidnap pretty woman, King Kong captures pretty woman.
I think actually, I wouldn't class King Kong as the universal monsters, but he is a giant monster, I suppose.
Yeah, it's all just like, maybe they could do Creature from the Black Lagoon, but I think it'd be very difficult to.
I think like the best way they could have done it would have been The Shape of Water, but it's already been done. So you can't. So I actually think turning that into an actual love story, I think, was a genius idea. Because then at least it doesn't feel nearly as weird. Creepy.
It is.
Not
I
weird,
don't know how
weird is.
True, it is to Universal, but this. Oh, it's not part of Universal at all. I don't think anyway. Is the Swamp Thing? That's kind of like Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's about the swamp creature falling in love. Kind of like that.
Yeah, I think it's DC, isn't it? I think it's
something like that.
Comics. I think it is. Yeah, because it's Man Thing that's in Marvel. I'm like, funny.
Man
Trevor. Trevor. Damn it. Is his name Trevor in Wealth by Night? It is. Anyway, but yeah, I think like we've hit the nail on the coffin. Just kill me now. It's honestly.
I'm gonna drive a stake through your heart, you vampire.
Is there stakes in that one? Probably is. Steak. Anyway, that has been our thoughts on the Universal Monster movies, because quite frankly, we could talk about like generic Halloween films. Let's talk about like the OG ones that they are what they are now, frankly. But yes, thank you very much for listening. Sorry it's been a little while since we've actually spoken. This is actually the first time I've seen Dan for literally 2 weeks and 2 days, and quite frankly, it's been a godsend. I'm kidding, obviously. I miss him a lot.
Do you know what it is like before we record this podcast? Do you know the scene in Nosferatu when Count Orlok just like rises out of his coffin? That was honestly me.
Ugh.
It's just me rising out of my bed, putting the headphones on, putting the mic in the phone.
You make it out as if you had like no life before this, and now you have a tenth of a life.
Well, I wouldn't exactly say it's completed my life, put it that way.
Oh wow, thanks, Dan. But
it's just made my life a little bit more
therapy for both of us.
Okay, yes, I do enjoy doing this. Yes, okay, is that what you wanted to hear, Mr. Eagle?
Yes, please.
God. Yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun, and hopefully our audience just like us, like just talking absolute shit about things most of the time. But
I mean, I suppose that's kind of what a podcast is, frankly.
Yeah,
It's just
pretty
two
much
people
is.
talking. Luckily, it's a slightly less of let's rattle on with the 39 things that Dan's watched, because further proof he has 9/10 of a life. Well, one tenth of a life. I've watched Halloween 2 again. It's like, oh, have you really? Oh, surprising. Swear to God. But anyway, tangent number 7-ish. I'm being generous. Yeah, that's been us this week. We will be back next week. I promise. We will be returning to the Whoniverse for probably the last time that we all enjoy it, with Doctor Who Series 10, which gratefully Dan hasn't mentioned at all, because again there's no playlist, but I cannot wait to hear his thoughts on Series 10, because I'm very much looking forward to talking about it. I've got half of the script written so far for that one. I can get to the other half. But yes, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week. But until then, it's goodbye from Dan.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Bye-bye.